Welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to talk about the 7-step exit planning process. We're going to cover all the components of a comprehensive exit plan within this 7-step exit planning process. So let's get started. First of all, my name is Bill Black. I'm a certified exit planner. I'm the president of Exit and Retirement Strategies, Inc. I've been working with business owners for 30+ years, and I'm the founder and host of Exit Coach Radio, where I've interviewed over 1,000 advisors for their best tips, ideas, and precautions for business owners. I've also authored 2 books on Amazon, and I'm a speaker of a presentation called Get Set, Preparing for Your Inevitable Succession, Exit, and Transition. This exit planning process we talked about goes among a path called the Exit Path Finder. And what we do is we start in the lower left-hand corner. Where are you today? We need to know what your business is all about, how you got to where you are. And then we meander up through value. What are you doing to build value in your business, to protect your assets and minimize taxes? And then we veer over to choosing your exit path in the lower right, where we need to understand what is your intention. Is it to transfer your business to insiders like children or employees, or do you want to dress it up and sell it to a third party someday? And then as we meander on up the path a little bit to continuity planning, we want to understand what have you done, or what would happen if anything were to happen to you. If you were to die or become disabled along the way and unable to work, would the business at that point cease to operate, or would it continue on because of good planning? And finally, we end up in the upper right-hand corner at where do you need to be? What are your goals? Or where do you want to be? And from there, we kind of look back at this gap that's in the upper left-hand corner. What's your desired business value? What does it need to be? And what's it currently worth? Once we understand that, we'll understand, is there a difference between those two numbers? And that becomes what we need to work on as far as building the value of your business so that you can achieve your goals. After we've done all that, if, for instance, today was our first meeting, you and I, we would start in the lower left-hand box, setting the timelines, and then starting to collect data and set strategy, your objectives, your resources, your ideal path, and turn that all into what's called a roadmap. I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a second. And then we take that information once we're really clear about it and meet with your advisors to get their input and to understand what the prioritized planning structure is going to be. And then we'd move that down to now we have a plan that everybody agrees on. We're going to present that to your family, co-owners, employees, let everybody know about the plan, and then move towards implementation by taking action on the strategies that are recommended. In the lower right-hand corner is where we manage the process. What are we doing? When's it due by? And who's responsible? And that's this overall organized process. Let's get into the meat of it. I mentioned the first couple of ideas that we need to understand are, what do you want? What are your objectives? And what are your business and personal financial resources that'll meet those objectives? And often we find that there's a gap between those two arrows. And then we move into the arrows or the sections down lower to take care of that. Now, I mentioned the business owner roadmap. Here's an example of what a roadmap looks like. It starts off with an overview of you, your company ownership, what the company's been doing with regards to revenues and cash flow and valuation, when the valuation was done and what it looks like. And don't worry if you don't have one. We have resources for you to get a valuation done. Who are your children? Are they active in the business? How many employees do you have, and how many of those are key employees, and what are their aspirations? Do they want to own the business someday? Do they need to be retained and motivated to stay with the business if you're selling to an outsider? All things that all of us advisors need to know about. And then we want to know about your employee benefit and incentive plans, what you're doing to help enhance employees' situations, and what of those areas can we possibly use to our advantage to build your exit plan. And then we want to know how you're protecting your business with insurance, with arrangements and agreements. And then we move into a very important section, your objectives, your departure and financial goals, your successor target, your tax minimization objectives, These are all things that we need to know and have crystal clear in writing so that we can present them to your advisor team so they can make the proper suggestions regarding the strategies we're proposing. Part of that is to do a financial needs analysis and determine what it is exactly that you need to get from the sale of your company or the transfer of your company. Then we can talk about how we're going to get those dollars to you in the most tax efficient manner. All along, there's going to be an advisor team involved at some point or another. Generally, we try to get the roadmap put together and then we present it to the advisor team. And for instance, in an advisor team, we might see a business consultant, a business planning attorney, an estate planning attorney, business valuation experts, CPAs, financial planners, insurance professionals, and others. The problem is that this is a multidisciplinary planning project. We need attorneys, CPAs, business consultants, and financial planners rather, because we're going to involve legal strategies, tax strategies, operation strategies, and financial strategies in your plan. The problem is if you just leave it to its own devices, you have all of these advisors coming at you, and we call this advisor overload because all of these people are coming at you and all you're doing is talking to different advisors and getting pulled every which way. What we'd much prefer is to have an exit planner who sits in the middle of all of these advisors and gets and receives information from these and gives information to these advisors and brings it all back to you in an organized manner. So let's talk about what's behind each of these 5 components down here in the exit planning process. First is maximizing and protecting business value. Now this is an area again where I told you that we might have a situation where you need to work on growing the value of the business over the next few years so that it'll accomplish your goals. How do we do that? Well, there are several different strategies we might look at. This is an example of a checklist we might work from, but we wouldn't use all of these strategies. Our goal would be to choose maybe 4 or 5 of these strategies. But for instance, from the beginning, we'd look at company valuation and do you have key person insurance in case anything happens to them? Do you have incentive plans to keep them in place or bonus plans or phantom stock types of programs? Do you need to recruit new employees or do you need to develop your management team? Do we need to look at profitability and cash flow growth? Do we need to acquire a new business to grow the value of the business? Do we need to protect your assets? All different types of strategies that might come into play in your plan. When we talk about transferring ownership to third parties, it's often a dual-edged sword. A lot of times business owners say, I want to sell to an outside third party, but I'd like to maybe keep the door open for a son or daughter or a key employee buying it if they can get it together. So when it comes to transferring to outside third parties, we look at things like, what do we need to do to prepare the company for sale? What are our preferred terms for the sale so that we know them before we're in negotiations? What can we do to distribute cash, identify potential buyers, reduce company debt, do some pre-sale tax planning, provide bonuses for employees if they help us grow the business and it sells for more than we hope for, or do we need to form a new entity? So again, a lot of different strategies might come into play. When we're transferring to insiders, that would be key employees or children, then we have a different set of strategies. Here we're trying to keep the taxes to a minimum so that we can make the most of the cash flow the company's providing to make the sale happen. So we might look at, again, do we want to sell to all employees? Maybe that would be an ESOP, for instance. Do we want to transfer minority shares to children or key employees? Do we want to do it by sale or by gift? How do we buy the shares back if anything goes wrong down the road? How do we make sure that the owner gets compensation from the business in a way that's not taxed many different ways? And how do we transition management responsibility from the owner to the key employees? So many different strategies come into play. Business continuity is all about that area of planning where we say, what happens if anything happens to you as the owner along the way? What if you die or become too sick or hurt to work for an extended period of time? Or what if a key employee dies or becomes too sick or hurt to work after you've transitioned all the management duties over to them? So here we look at, first of all, we want to know information that is contained in something called business continuity instructions. It's kind of like a business will. It has information about who should manage different things, who should your spouse trust, what advisors should they trust, what should we do with the business, what are your instructions. So that's an important component. And then in the strategy side of things, we look at things like, do we have a buy-sell agreement? How do we dispose of the ownership through estate planning documents if that's your desire? How do we continue your salary for your spouse if anything happens to you suddenly? Do we need to retain key employees with a stay bonus plan? So last, we have the area of personal wealth and estate planning. And this particular area is very important to protect everything that you've built up along the way. It might include clarification of your estate planning preferences. Maybe you need to update your living trust, or maybe you don't have one at all and you need to get that in place. We need to look at ownership and beneficiary designations of different assets. What's your lifetime wealth management strategy going to be once you receive a pile of cash from the sale of the business? And how is that protected? How have we protected those assets? So as you can see, the comprehensive exit plan, which consists of determining your objectives, figuring out what your resources are, and then putting together a plan of strategies in each of the 5 areas we just identified, can be quite complex, and it can be very, very complicating or confusing to business owners. So that's why we jump in and we work through this process. And again, what we do in the middle of the page, we have that roadmap. But that's where we take that information and meet with your advisors. If we get them involved too early, the plan could get very, very expensive because most of them charge by the hour. So we want to get our plan together, meet with those advisors, and believe me, we won't have 50 different strategies in the plan. Usually we'll have narrowed it down to about 10 strategies that make sense for your goals and your situation. And then we get those advisors to come together, review the strategies, come to consensus that those make the most sense, or else we might throw some out and put some new ones in. And then we work on implementing those strategies on a prioritized basis. It's really important to have those listed strategy 1 through 10 as far as priorities are concerned, to make sure we're saving time and money and getting those strategies put together in a prioritized fashion. We start the whole process by asking you several questions. We have an online questionnaire that you can take, and it'll basically come back in a chart that looks something like this. The 4 quadrants on the upper right-hand side are maximizing business value. On the bottom, it's business continuity and estate planning. On the left side in the bottom, ownership transfers to insiders. Left side at the top is owner objectives and financial resources. So we want to know and hone in on what are the things that are most important to you. So from your answers to a questionnaire, we come up with these areas. The ones in red are the most highest priorities. So in this case, business continuity guidelines. What happens if anything happens to me? I need to protect my family. Personal wealth management. What happens if I get a pile of cash and it gets all taken away because I haven't protected it? Transfer of ownership interest planning and non-qualified deferred compensation planning. So how do I get money coming to myself with a minimum of taxes and make sure that it's not hurting the cash flow of the company? And honing in on the exit plan and the successor, really focusing in on discussing who the business is going to go to, who I want it to go to, and how they're going to manage it into the future. That concludes the overview. I know it's been kind of a whirlwind and a once around, but I wanted to minimize the time that we spend on that and give you a complete picture of what a plan looks like. If you'd like more information or you'd like to get started on your plan, it's really simple to do so. You can go to exitcoachradio.com/links, the website that's up on your screen right now. And from that screen, you can see that there are several different links that you can click on to take a pre-questionnaire about your exit planning and get that analysis done. You can do an analysis on how to grow the value of your company. You can ask for specific information on retaining key employees or building a business continuity instructions plan to protect your family. Or you can even ask for an advisor to help you through all this, and we'll help you find an advisor no matter where you are. We have access to hundreds and hundreds of advisors all over the country. So if that doesn't work for you, if you're not an online kind of person or you don't want to get started there, give me a call, 866-370-3774. Call me. You'll get my assistant. She'll set up a time for us to talk on the telephone about your situation, about what your concerns are, and how I can help you to start getting clear about working on your plan. It's something that needs to be done. 100% of all business owners will ultimately exit their business. It's something that you have to do sooner rather than later, because some of these strategies take time, and you never know when something's going to happen, good or bad, that you need to be ready for in your exit planning. So I want to thank you for joining us today for this brief webinar, and again invite you to visit us at exitcoachradio.com/links, or give us a call. Call Bill Black at 866-370-3774. Set up a call and let's talk. Thanks again for joining us today.